a little bit different because you mix the teams. So you're going to have a center playing next to a guard that he hadn't played with all spring. First team center is going to be with a second or third team guard, and same way with the wideouts are kind of all split up in each position. But the biggest thing is just execution. That's the thing you're always looking for. And it's one thing to do it out here in scrimmages, and when it's just us out here on the practice field, and all of a sudden you get some fans in the stands and everybody's off the field and you got cameras and everything out there. Seeing if the guys that we've really challenged to take the next step, those younger guys that have really made a lot of progress this spring, we want to see them make that progress on the game field in that type of setting, because the next time we get out there in the stadium, it'll be the real thing.
For a few of those guys, Travion Thompson.
Yeah, Travion's done really well. He's a guy that's had a lot of opportunity this spring and made a lot of plays, and so I'd love to see a guy like that go out and make plays in a game. And then some of those young linemen that have gotten an opportunity, gotten better, we want to see them on that type of stage, being able to go out there and execute in that situation.
How much do you expect to see Deshaun on the field?
Yeah, I think he's going to play. I know that, and he'll get some good work. And then at some point, Coach Sweeney will probably decide to let the other guys kind of battle it out. But I know the plan is definitely for Deshaun to be out there and play a good bit early on, and go out and execute, get his work done, and then put his ball cap on at some point.
As you keep trying to sort out the back and quarterback position, how much stock do you put in the spring game? Or is there more to
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's kind of like a final exam. All these practices are kind of like different days in the class, and then all of a sudden it's the final exam of the spring. And some guys can make plays out here on the practice field, and then they get in a game setting. And we've seen some guys actually do better in a game setting. And I'm looking forward to seeing how those guys respond and how they execute, command the offense. It should be the best that they've been because of all the work they've gotten this spring, and that's one thing I'm looking forward to the most, is watching those guys compete this Saturday.
Does this feel like a young offense? Just you look at the roster, and Dad was talking about all the freshmen, sophomores. Does this have the look of a young team?
Every year I feel like we're young, and we got a lot of veteran guys at key positions coming back, but I think more than anything we're probably excited about the youth that we have, and so maybe that's one reason that we kind of feel like we're young, because we're putting a lot of young guys in critical situations, and we feel like we're going to count on those guys. And we know what the older guys can do, and those guys, we've challenged them this spring, but really it's been about kind of closing that gap. And that was one thing I was really pleased with today. We had some good work today where we put the number 2 offense versus the number 1 defense, and the number 2 offense had some success today in some critical situations. And so that was a big win for them, something that they can take confidence from, and it was kind of the next step that we needed to see from that group. So hopefully those guys will carry that over to Saturday.
Even though beyond Jordan and Jay, there's really no seniors on that side of the ball. It's certainly help when you've got like Gallman and Bryant, that they've been there even though they like a year in school here.
Yeah, it is. We kind of count Deshaun as a senior, Mike Williams, Artavis Scott. We kind of look at all those guys as kind of guys that have been around, even though this probably is their 3rd year. They've just kind of earned that credibility. But there's a lot of young guys out there, and to be honest, one thing I think Coach Sweeney's always done a good job since he's been the head coach is he reps a lot of people. The entire spring we're going to get all 3 groups are going to get a lot of work done. And so whenever you do that, it kind of, as a coach, you kind of become numb and you kind of forget that these guys are freshmen because of all the reps that they've gotten. They probably, after being here a year and a half, they've gotten the reps of maybe a junior or senior somewhere else. And I think that's really allowed us to develop those younger guys at a better rate maybe than maybe at some other places. But we have to remind ourselves sometimes those guys are freshmen. A guy like Hunter Renfro, in my mind, I think he's Adam Humphreys as a senior. And I got to remember that he's a redshirt freshman, and be a sophomore next year. But he's already earned that kind of credibility and kind of had that game experience and been through the battle. So we do have some youth, but I think it's good youth that's on the way.
beyond Jordan, who are you hopeful that will be another option in the passing game? Is it Garrett Williams or Milan?
Yeah, that's probably been one of the best battles of the spring. I don't think there's anybody that's separated themselves from the group where it's a clear number two. I think all those guys have had their days where they've made some nice plays. DJ Greenlee is a guy here over the last week or so that's made a lot of plays, and when he knows what he's doing, he does a good job. But Garrett's had some good days. Cannon's had some good days, and so has Milan. But we're looking for the consistency behind Jordan. That's what we're looking for. This will be a big test for all those guys. See how they do when everybody's off the field and got some crowd and fans out there. So I'm looking forward to watching that group as well.
Dabo says that he's been proud of the way Canes handled the whole suspension and everything. Can you talk about what some of those things are and how he's done in your eyes?
Yeah, he's been held responsible really to be in all the meetings, and he basically does everything except practice. And when you do that, you kind of have two options. Some guys are disengaged, just kind of there because they have to be there. They're on the sidelines looking around and not really engaged. I mean, Dion, every play, he's been out there in the middle of the field standing next to Coach Sweeney, calling out the play, standing there going through it in his mind, talking about the reads and the different things. And he's really been doing kind of what Deshaun did last year, to be honest, whenever he was not repping, out there getting mental reps. He's been engaged and been doing the things that he needs to do off the field. He's not at the end of it yet. Still got a lot of things that he's got to do, and it's going to take time and consistency. But I'm proud of him, and I'm encouraging him, and he knows what he has to do. It's been communicated very clear to him from Coach Sweeney and from everybody, but so far he's done that. And so up to this point, he's on the right track, but we'll check in next month and see where we are.
The volatility of profession when coaches does that surprise you sometimes that this group of 9 assistants has stayed as consistent as it has?
I think two things that shows. Number one, it shows that Coach Sweeney has done a good job of hiring coaches. I mean, I can remember back to when he hired Coach Morris. There's a lot of people that had a lot of other opinions. Coach Morris had only been at Tulsa maybe for 1 year. Before that, it was all high school. And Coach Sweeney, I think he's just done a great job of hiring the right people that fit his culture and fit this program. And then the second thing, I think, is the coaches enjoy Clemson. I think there's been a lot of coaches on our staff that have had opportunities to go other places, and that's probably more the norm, unfortunately, than staying loyal and staying at the place. But Clemson's a place that coaches, enjoy the environment. They enjoy working for Coach Sweeney. He's a great head coach to work for, and just the support that we have from the administration and everything about it. There's a lot of people that would love to be here and be coaching under Coach Sweeney. So I think those are a lot of positives. So I'm just glad. It's hard to believe that this will be going into my 9th season, 8 full-time, but 9th overall. My first year as a GA. It's gone by really fast, and I'm also excited because I feel like we're just getting started. I think that is, I think that's what you see in a lot of the great programs. You see continuity. I know when my dad was at Florida State back in the day, I think they had the entire 9 full-time 9 guys. They kept the same 9 guys for about 8 or 9 years before the first guy left. And so when you have the culture and everything in the right direction, you're able to keep your coaches, and then the support that the athletic department, the president, Clements, and Dan Radakovich, and everybody over there have stepped up to the plate to be able to keep their coaches. I mean, I'm happy that Coach Venables is here as our defensive coordinator. He's had opportunities to go anywhere he wanted to in the country, and so for us to keep him here, I think that's a big statement.
Coach, how has Kelly Bryant progressed throughout the spring? What do you like or dislike what you've seen from him?
Yeah, I think Kelly's gotten better. He's had some really good days, and then he's had some days that he's kind of taken that step back, like a lot of young guys in his position. And the biggest thing that Coach Sweeney and Coach Streeter are really challenging him is to be consistent, be the same player every day and every situation. And I think that's one thing that Deshaun's a great model, a great leader. I mean, Deshaun is the same person every day. You're going to get his best, and that's the biggest thing from Kelly is just the consistency of playing at a high level. I think it's gotten better, and it's been more often, but it's not quite as consistent. as Coach Sweeney and Coach Streeter maybe want at this point, but spring game will be big for him and Nick. So,
What do you think are the things he needs to do to find that consistency you're looking for?
yeah, I mean, I think really just being able to operate whenever we're on the practice field and be able to consistently make the throws on time. He's still processing things. Now, at the same time, you got to realize our defense is throwing everything at us every single day, probably more than you'll see from just a typical defense in a certain game week. So he's getting a lot of looks, he's getting a lot of challenging things, but being able to process those things quickly, I think, is the biggest thing that he needs to continue to work on and that he's been working on all spring.
Does Saturday's game hold a lot of stock in terms of whether Kelly or Nick ultimately emerges as the number 2 quarterback?
I think so, absolutely. I mean, very few opportunities in the spring do you get in front of a big crowd with everybody off the field, and some guys play better in those situations than they practice, and some other guys maybe practice better and don't perform as well, and that's what this is all about, to get those guys opportunities. But absolutely, just like we'll be evaluating every position, that'll be a big position that Coach Sweeney and Coach Streeter and our offensive staff will evaluate on Saturday.
Another position battle this spring, Tyrone and Maverick at right guard. What have you seen from those two guys as a whole heading into the spring game?
Yeah, I've been really pleased with Tyrone. I think he's got his weight back down where it needs to be. I think he'd got a little bit too heavy in the off season, and he's worked hard, getting up early mornings, running, and working with the strength staff to get the weight down. And you can tell he's a lot better player whenever he's at the proper weight and condition. So I've been really pleased with Tyrone. And then Maverick, he's had good days, and he's also had some injuries he's been battling through. Been a little bit inconsistent, and I think a little bit that's been because he's been out with some nagging injuries. But I mean, he's a guy that we believe can help us. But Tyrone's probably been a little bit more consistent so far this spring. We're good?
Thanks,
Thanks, Coach.